Okay, this is the Bible journey. This is archaeological, geographic, historical confirmation of the Bible, and we're looking at the Old Testament now. My name is Timothy Hartley, and this is a work to show you the historical reliability of the Bible starting from the New Testament. Okay, let's start. The Garden of Eden area in eastern Turkey. This is around the headwaters of the Murat River in mid-eastern Turkey. So here we have this area of Turkey. The Garden of Eden's location can be determined by following the clues of the four rivers in Eden. This area is near the headwaters of the Euphrates, Tigris, the Pishon, and the Gihon. These headwaters are known to be in the highlands of what was ancient Armenia. Since Noah's flood covered the Garden of Eden with sediment, then the Arabian plate later collided with the Anatolian plate, causing mountain building and later volcanic activity. Missionary Maria A. West, in her book, describes this area as the place where local Armenians said the Garden of Eden was located. The Garden of Eden would have been within the boundaries of the headwaters, but likely underneath hundreds of meters of sediment. But this area today stands above the starting point of humanity at the creation of the world. Number 2, Paleolithic era Adam and Eve petroglyphs. This Stone Age petroglyph rock picture is located beside glacial Lake Utasar in southern Armenia. This area contains thousands of rock pictures. This particular one depicts Adam and Eve, God, the serpent, the trees, and the fruit quite well. It could have been used like a chalkboard in Stone Age times to tell the story of the Garden of Eden as told in the opening chapters of Genesis. Number 3, the Adam and Eve seal, evidence for the Adam and Eve account. In the year 1932, while excavating on the Tepe Gawra Mound, Dr. Ephraim A. Spicer of the University Museum of Pennsylvania discovered a very small stone seal. The seal found showed a naked man and a woman walking as if downcast and broken-hearted. A snake was in the upper left behind the man and woman. The seal was dated to 3500 BC. This find supports the biblical Genesis account. The Tepe Gawra tell is very old. It was inhabited between 5000 and 1500 BC, and in it are several layers representing eras of settlement. The Tepe Gawra mound is 19 kilometers north of Nineveh, 2 kilometers west of Omar Kebisi, Iraq. The tell or settlement mound at Tepe Gawra is 120 meters in diameter and 22 meters high. Dr. Spicer believed that the seal found is strongly suggestive of the biblical account of Adam and Eve. The seal is now at the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Number 4, the story of Genesis embedded in Chinese script, 2600 BC. Around 2600 BC, according to tradition, Huangdi, the first emperor of China, also known as the Yellow Emperor, commissioned a wise man named Kanji to invent the Chinese language. This language was composed of pictures instead of letters to convey objects and ideas. The interesting thing is that the worldview of the inventor of the Chinese language became permanently fixed in the Chinese characters. In the 1920s, C.H. Kang and Dr. Ethel R. Nelson discovered that many of the Chinese characters, which were made of pictures, were actually confirming the account in Genesis about the creation of Adam and Eve, the fall, Cain and Abel, and the Tower of Babel. They wrote a book called The Discovery of Genesis, explaining that the early Chinese civilization worshipped one god, Shangdi, who was a god who was not worshipped with idols. This god also required sacrifice of a lamb or ox to atone for sin. Chinese words such as spirit, first, God, create, garden, happiness, forbidden, devil, tempter, desire, covet, naked, guard, elder brother, large ship, flood, tower, migrate, and righteousness all have pictorial parts that strongly support the biblical account of Genesis 1-11. Indeed, God has not forgotten the Chinese people, but instead gifted them with a key in their own language that unlocks Bible truths. Number 5. The Garden of Eden bronze tree from ancient Shu civilization. In 1986, this bronze tree artifact was discovered in Guang'an, China. It is 3.95 meters tall and was created by the Shu civilization, which existed in China at the Sangxingdui site from 2050 BC to 1250 BC. It was discovered along with about 1,000 other artifacts. This tree depicts the elements of the Adam and Eve story from Genesis. The bronze tree has birds, 9 birds in total, fruits with sharp blade-like leaves, a woman's hand, and a serpent whose head is at the bottom. This 4,000-year-old piece of evidence correlates strongly to the biblical account and is corroborating evidence from the Shu civilization in China. It is now on display at the Sangxingdui Museum, Chengdu, China. Number 6. Evidence for the Adam and Eve account in Sumerian culture. In the 1880s, George Smith, a British Assyriologist, found the temptation seal as he excavated Sumer near the town of Al-Budayr, Iraq. This chlorite seal depicts a man and a woman seated on thrones, reaching towards a tree with a serpent behind each figure. Another seal shows a man treading on a serpent, which corroborates the text of Genesis 3:15, which predicts that the seed of the woman would crush the serpent, but the serpent would bite the heel. The seal dates from 2200 to 2100 BC. The book of Genesis would have been written approximately 1446 BC, so the seal would be about 600 years older. The temptation seal is now on display at the British Museum. Number 7. The fossilized remains of Noah's Ark. The flood of Noah and worldwide geologic upheaval occurred approximately 3000 BC according to biblical genealogies in the Septuagint. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives traveled on the ark. Those 8 humans then repopulated humanity. However, the location of the ark itself has been a mystery. According to the 1st century Jewish historian Josephus, the Armenians call this place the place of descent. For the ark being saved in that place, its remains are shown there by the inhabitants to this day. In 1959, Army captain named İlhan Durupanar of the Turkish Air Force identified a boat-shaped object from an aerial photograph while flying above the site. A team from America came over in 1960 to examine the curious geologic structure and even blasted a hole in the side of the formation. After days of not finding any proof for it being Noah's Ark, they concluded that it was just a geological anomaly and the case was closed. However, in August 1977, Korean War veteran and American nurse anesthetist Ron Wyatt and his sons re-examined this 515-foot boat-shaped object and found it to be the same length, 300 Egyptian cubits, as described in Genesis 6:13-16 and Genesis 8:4-5. He and his team later found petrified wood at the site under the soil. After core drilling, fossilized antlers and animal dung were found, as well as cat species hair. Magnetometer readings at the site indicate that there is an unusually strong presence of iron at the site. Examination of a metal piece recovered from the site also indicate that both aluminum and titanium, produced by man-made processes, were used in the large metal rivets that were found. Subsurface ground penetrating radar revealed regular lines coming from under the ground that could be interpreted as a keel, keelsons, and bulkheads along the whole length of the object. Famous Turkish archaeologist Dr. Ekrem Akurgal told Wyatt, "May I congratulate you for that great success. It really is. I believe it is an ancient remains of an old ship. It must be preserved." In the area where the formation is, there is nearby the town of Kazan, which used to be called Artsap, which means to capture the earth, where the drogue stones may have caught the earth. In the peak to the south of the formation is called Ziyaret Dagi, which means to make a voluntary pilgrimage. The Quran says that Noah's Ark rested on Mount Judy. Ziyaret Dagi is one of the 3 possible locations for Mount Judy and is directly above Noah's Ark formation. The entire ridge and town of Uzangili used to be named Maser, which means Judgment Day. The village to the west is Nasar, which means to make a sacrifice. And the village to the east is Kargakonmaz, which means the crow won't land. The village to the west of Uzangili is now called Goler, but it used to be called the Village of the Eight. Yigit Yitagi means hero's anchorage or birth. Kargakonmaz means crow will not land, which totally agrees with the biblical account of Noah's Ark. Number 8. Noah's Ark Initial Landing Site. Higher up on the hill from where the boat-shaped object is found a structure with the same general shape and curvature as the boat-shaped object. It is believed that the ark first landed here. For thousands of years, a town was built around it, then graves, as people would want to be buried near the ark, and it came to be known as a necropolis called Naxawan, the city of Noah. Then many years ago, the ark was carried down the hill by liquefaction, by an earthquake really, and a landslide, where the earth moved like liquid in a landslide to its present location. Interestingly, the material called the ballast in the hull of the ship consisted of slag, titanium, and aluminum metals. As the ark slid down the hill some 1.8 kilometers, the ballast material was deposited along the way, leaving a metallic trail of its journey. Amazingly, the lava flow petrified the wood, preserving the structure of this ancient ship for us to see these thousands of years later. Number 9. Enormous drogue stones from Noah's Ark. The pre-flood ancient world had many technologies that were lost when only 8 people survived to repopulate the earth. Among these technologies were enormous drogue stones, which were found by Ron Wyatt, David Fassold, and Bill Fry. Drogue stones were used to stabilize ships in turbulent waters by helping orient them towards waves. When the ark began to settle in the mountains of Ararat, the stones, which were held presumably with large ropes, were cut and the stones fell to their current location. Altogether, there are over 20 that have been found. Armenian Christians carved crosses into many of the stones, identifying them with spiritual significance. Some of these stones have 8 crosses on them, representing the 8 survivors of the flood. Number 10. Possible altar of Noah behind home. Korean War veteran Ron Wyatt came to Turkey in 1977 with his 2 boys, Danny and Ronnie, to investigate the boat-shaped object that was photographed following the Second World War. They found a very ancient dwelling that was made very close to where the majority of the drogue-style sea anchors were found. A house with evidence of sedimentation built up around it, indicating that it was very old, was surrounded by a stone fence that was possibly the boundary lines for perhaps the vineyard Noah planted. Outside the ancient structure were 2 megalithic stones. The darker one, which was standing, had a carving of the 8 people of Noah's family, with Noah, the first, with his eyes closed, indicating that he had died. The other had the second person out of 8 with her eyes closed, indicating that Noah's wife, second from the right, had died. When Ron Wyatt came later to the site, the graves had been exhumed, the walls were torn down, and the stones were removed. However, the altar remains to this day.